Okay, today. So hello, we'll start our conversation with Natasha Kivak, Ayahuasquera. Okay, I wanted to start, 1 second, people still come in. I wanted to start this conversation with my experience of this weekend. We had this enormous activity on the sun. We have polar light all around Hudson Valley. Everybody photographed it, which is nobody seen yet. We had definitely too much energy. And this is a moment when you have too much energy, intense emotion. Sure. And when you have intense emotions, it could be sometimes it's excitement or sometimes it's like joy, but sometimes you go another side in depression and sadness and anger. And I will probably add my experience because in many years I work with extreme emotion using process work and using tantric, Buddhist tantric methods. But first I invite Natasha to talk about it. And I would start like you ayahuasca shaman. So you basically, you give this substance to people and people go deliberately by the decisions, they go into extreme states. And why would people do it, and how you self-handle it, and how you hold space for people, and why would anybody do it, actually?
Good question. Let's ask
Yeah.
people. Why do you do
We try to avoid it.
There's actually often question that I ask for interview before people come to ceremony. I have interview with every new person. And I often ask them, why do you choose to spend your Saturday or Friday or whatever night in such a bizarre way? What's happening with your life?
Yes.
Yeah. So, ladies, I want to invite you to scan your body right now. I just notice sensations.
Okay, I'll do it as well.
Yeah. Physical sensations. Yeah. And you're probably noticing something pleasant and something not so pleasant and something neutral. Yeah. And now notice how you relate to sensations that you consider not ideal or not optimal. Right? Do you like it having this sensation, or you're not quite liking it? Yeah.
I have pain in the neck and I definitely hate.
Exactly. So that's a very key thing to understand about our emotional field, that there is actual thing that is happening. It could be either physical sensation, it could be even something emotional, right? Let's say I am jealous. I'm looking at these young girls outside, totally making up with, like, and I'm feeling jealous. They're wearing those short skirts and they look exactly how I looked when I was in my early 20s. And it's like, right? Or I'm looking at those girls and it's so exciting. I have this nostalgic memories, how good it was. And thank you, girls, that you reminded me how amazing it feels to be young. And that's why we have young people around, because that's a good reminder that life is going on, right? And in my young years, I contributed to maybe some older women looking, it's like, oh, that's how it felt, good, right? So very different ways of reacting on very same thing, right? So imagine that you have a huge taboo, culturally built in a family, a huge taboo about feeling something, either it's a jealousy or joy. In many countries, in many cultures, feeling joy, it's like an unthinkable thing. You're selfish. You should not feel this way when there are so many people suffering in the world, right? So what I'm explaining right now is layered structure. There's actual thing that is happening, and then there's also judgment, right? It's not necessarily a bad judgment. It's just like our evaluation and how I'm conditioned to react on certain things, right? And usually how we get stuck into bad things, that we actually reacting in this conditional way. And for us, it's a final truth, right?
That's a little bit voice in the microphone. More.
Okay. Yeah. So for building emotional awareness, right? This thing of understanding that there is actual sensation or actual emotion, and then there is my way to react on it. And it's usually wrapped up inside of our psyche, so we're not separating. You just see that's how things are. That's the thing. I'm angry, right? Or I'm lost, or I'm confused, right? Or I feel helpless. Maybe I feel something in my body, right? And that's awfully similar to how I felt as a child getting sick. And my mom was very unhappy when I was getting sick, right? And this feeling of helplessness that like I'm betraying the whole family. The whole drama starts opening up, but it's literally the like light feeling of nausea in my body, right? So understanding how those things work, it helps us a lot to navigate. And first thing that happens is actual awareness. Before anything we do, we become aware that something is happening, right? It's
How
not just
you can, I'm sorry, I interrupt,
yeah,
but everybody talk about awareness.
yeah.
It's like most common word. But what is awareness for you? How you describe it? Like how I can know yes, I'm aware that I have this feeling in the neck and I hate it. I'm also aware of my emotions. Is it awareness or something else?
Yeah, that's already awareness. It's already
Mm-hmm.
awareness. So at the very least, you're not considering yourself, I'm just angry person, right? I'm angry.
Sounds.
Yeah. So that's the first step in awareness. That's like, okay, here's the physical sensation, and that's how I relate to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As practitioner, I'm aware of many things that are happening in ceremony, and one of the part of the training is actually learning those energies. We're not talking about emotions much. It's not an indigenous culture to talk about emotions. It's very gringo thing to be.
It's a
Yeah,
psychology thing. And
yeah,
I myself, like even being practitioner of process work, which more tantric, we don't talk about emotions as much.
yeah, yeah. But we definitely could talk about energies, right? Like vibrational frequencies, whatever that means. Like something
But
feels
what
this
that
way.
this means? How you can describe that?
It feels good or bad. It feels yucky. It feels attractive. It feels interesting. It feels pleasant. It feels like I never want to be here again. You know, like we have something,
Mm-hmm.
some reaction on the field. It's cold, it's warm, it's neutral, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
a physical sensation of a skin on temperature, right? As opposed to like fear.
So more
Fear has,
sensational awareness than mental uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
labeling.
So not mental labeling in a certain terms of like we are just running these narratives on and on, but like, okay, what's actually happening? Which part of my body says no? If I dislike
Mm-hmm.
it, what's happening in my body? Which part of my body literally says no? In which way it says no? Is it contraction, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
it just like I feel like I'm basically building a wall and just like I have nothing to do with it? Does it smell bad? Some energies have very particular smell, right? And you can develop awareness through the smell. In ceremonies you can see things, right? And that some energies have very specific either pattern or even color, like something that looks like ugly, yucky, brownish black. Hardly I can imagine that it's something good, right? Good things usually more bright or neutral.
Questionable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
basically, you're using different channels. Like that's how we call it in process work, using different channels. It could be sensation, smell, vision. We also usually add movement or sound to determine what kind of feeling and energies and emotions, right?
well, we don't use movement.
You don't use movements. We
I'm not
use.
like I,
I can say something. I know I don't know about your tradition, but the Colombian shaman tradition I was working with, Tata Juan Batista, they did ayahuasca dance and ayahuasca. They did dance, special dance.
yeah,
So there are some traditions who use movement even in those ceremonies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what was the question?
Oh, I was just trying to reflect. It wasn't the question. I was trying to reflect. So you understand the energies through different channels, like vision or smell or
Yeah. So awareness, building awareness about bad energies, it's first
sound, sound, sound.
it's a step to not identifying yourself with those energies
Uh-huh.
or actions, right? Difference as in I am angry right now, I feel angry right now, versus I'm angry as an angry person. I
Uh-huh.
feel confused right now, as opposed to I'm confused person. Yeah. Because the states, confusion, anger, loneliness, all this stuff, it's all normal human emotions. Like I know a single person who lived their lives without feeling all of it. More or less, it's normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those emotions, they actually give us indication about like what's going on in our lives. If I sitting in the evening and I feel lonely, it's like, oh, maybe I should socialize more, right? Maybe I became a workaholic and my social life is actually limited to just work connections, and maybe I need friends.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But when I'm putting label on myself, oh, I'm lonely, right?
Uh-huh.
It immediately kind of puts me in this infantile, helpless position that life is happening to me. Because I'm such a person, that's why such life is happening to me. So basically, there is very little I can do about it, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm angry. I mean, that's how I was born. I'm angry or I'm talkative, right? So disconnecting behavior from the person and giving person the freedom to have different behaviors, right? It's really empowering act for yourself. It's like, yeah, I can be that, I can be that, I can be that. So that's kind of step number one, right? Just awareness of what's happening without putting label on yourself that I'm that, right? I'm this being that having this emotion right now. That's step number one, and that's pretty easy. Just a little bit of awareness and you can name it. Harder things happen when we are not supposed to feel something. In ceremonies, uh, people who are, let's say, naturally empathic, right? And they supposed to be always helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
You probably deal a lot with that in a family dynamics in your modality, right? This role that people are choosing to play in the family dynamic, for example, right? Like,
We do family constellations, different.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So, so you either that or you're not doing your thing, right? And if you are not taking responsibility about every single human being around you, and you are not sitting there as a vacuum cleaner, sucking all the dark, heavy, whatever energy inside yourself, right? But you just like going into your process, you're doing your thing, right? And that's like, but you're not supposed to be that. You're supposed to be paying attention to everyone around you. That's your role. So that's when this more trickier reaction happens, that people start blaming themselves or feeling uncomfortable. It might not even be related to blame, but just lack of experience. Like I don't know how to be like singing on my own. I don't know how to disconnect from the environment, right? Or I don't know how to stay calm when somebody's purging and somebody's obviously having hard time, right? Inside of me, there is not okayness. There is zero okayness with somebody's like going through tough experience, right? I have to save. I say I have to help, right? And then instead of going through my experience, I'm basically dedicating my ceremony to worrying about somebody else, or I'm dedicating like part of my life. So I cannot be like in my thing, doing my thing, building healthy boundaries. Like when people need help, they will ask, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
have the right to even reject it if I don't feel like doing it. It's absolutely okay to say like, no, I cannot do it, right? Uh, so that becomes more complicated because like one thing is that you're processing all this stuff which is not even yours. Another thing that on the back end, this resentment or anger starts building up because nobody's happy when they cannot live their own lives. right? Nobody's happy. Like somebody told me, showed me this experiment, like try to love, like invoke feeling of love, like you're loving somebody, right? Child, yourself, your partner, your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then try to feel that you're obliged to love them. You have to love them. That's your obligation, right? Do you still feel love? It's nearly impossible to feel obligation and love at the same time. Basically, obligation is a killer of love, right? So if somebody lives with a set of beliefs that I have to take care of everyone, yada, 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 then yeah, people don't feel much love. People feel a lot of like maybe rightfulness, that like I'm doing the right thing. But it's very different from loving yourself or loving other people. Yeah. So all these kind of supplemented emotions, like I cannot feel that, but I'm going to feel that. So that's this terrain becomes tricky. Yeah.
I'm sitting in the question. I'm sitting in the question. Okay, you're a shaman. You're leading a ceremony,
Yeah.
and at the same time, like you're in the midst of strong energies. Do you,
Yeah.
and also you're obliged to help these people somehow. They pay you. How you deal with all these levels? You have your own process. You see clients' process. You have some responsibility to them.
Mm.
How shaman does it?
Training, practice. That's what it takes to be a practitioner, right? how do people play piano with two
How
hands?
you separate your strong emotions from other strong emotions, other
Again,
people?
again, years and years of practice. That's why initiation takes a year and more, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody in the right mind would tell you, that first 5 years you're very much like this, like junior IT engineer, and you're just learning, right?
Uh-huh.
Then you become a serious practitioner because it takes time, and you learn emotional intelligence, and you learn many things, and you go constantly process your own stuff, and you sit in many ceremonies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it takes. So my emotions, basically, if I see somebody, if somebody's coming to me as a potential client, and I have very strong emotional reaction to that person, that pretty much automatically disqualifies me from being practitioner for this person. I don't take people
Mm-hmm.
who might have strong emotional reaction as in like I need to change you, or you need to change, yada yada, which means that basically this person mirroring to me something which I don't accept in myself.
But
Like
I think, like from my perspective, like from my experience, every client who come to my school or ceremony, they mirror something to me. That's why they're attracted to me, and I'm attracted to them. And also, like from my experience, I should have some emotion. Like I usually, at least I should like or be interested, or somehow people challenge me. Like people who come, they always challenge me somehow.
well, having positive emotion in a sense, like yeah, like I see what God had in mind when he created you. That's a good thing, right? That's
Hmm.
helpful. But if something in me tells me that like I want to fix you, right, then it means I have an agenda. It means I'm trying to push you to into direction which might be not even right for you. If for this particular person now being XYZ, that's what's in the cards, and I'm pushing him or her to be ABC, that me basically I'm outsourcing my own process. So it's not a good
Mm-hmm.
practice to, in my opinion and in my experience, and I know many practitioners, not necessarily in ayahuasca world, but in psychology and coaching, yada yada, that if something in a person triggers me to the point when I'm having like intense emotional reaction, like you got to change, right? Yeah, that disqualifies me from being a practitioner for this person, because I will not
Mm-hmm.
be
So you
working.
you see, you screen people most, right?
I do, yeah, I speak with every person.
Mm-hmm.
And again, then when I see something, some pattern in myself, like years ago, I used to, like, I couldn't work with narcissists. When I see narcissistic traits, it just like, rolling my eyes, those people, yada, yada. So I challenge myself, let's figure out the narcissism, right? Let's meet my inner narcissist, or where I'm not allowing myself to be a narcissist. Like something is going on, right? For me. And it was interesting learning path. yeah, but going back to negative emotions, I would want today to actually give a little bit more information on specifics, like what kind of emotions, instead of talking in general, right? And what we are dealing in Shipibo tradition, in ceremonies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a few things that if you listen to the chants, pretty much every ceremony, something getting cleansed, something getting aligned. So energies that we work with, negative energies. One of them is called Ashna. It's weakness.
Uh-huh. So they have names.
Yeah. You name them, and when you chant, you name them. You name
Ah,
exactly.
you even chant and name.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. You naming what you're working with and what you're doing.
It's
Yeah.
like calling spirits or.
Calling spirits is one thing. So big part of work, ceremonial work, at least in this tradition, right? It's very precise naming of things that you're working with and what you're doing with them. I
Mm-hmm.
see this ta-ta-ta, darkness, whatever, this tightness there, and I'm cleansing it. People have so many words for cleansing. It's very much like this northern tribe Chukcha for snow, like 300 words, right?
Really? I didn't know that.
They have so
Wow.
many different words for cleansing, like wiping, washing with the water, blowing with very many words.
Cool.
Different types of cleansing, then they have different words or different type of alignment. You need to align something. So Pashna, it's weakness. It's this feeling of like helplessness, feeling of like a lack of agency. We would say, yeah,
Mhm.
lack of agency. That life is happening to me. I cannot do anything, right? It's just like right. This kind of state, this kind of energy is a result of what they called ucha. Ucha, it's actually Quechua word from Quechua language, from mountains, and there it means misalignment. And
Mhm.
people, they translate it more like sin, right? Sin. So basically,
Sin.
you sinned, right? You did something bad, and as a result of like your misaligned actions, which is kind of logical. The power is taken from the person if you misuse the power, right? Well, that's basic. So you
Yeah.
sit, and then you start developing what is called buma. That's another type of energy. It's disenchantment. It's like sitting there. It's like it's not bad. It's not good. I'm not motivated. Like couch potato, like office
Mm-hmm.
plankton. Like I don't do anything.
Yeah. No inspiration, no excitement,
No
no
inspiration,
this
like light
life.
level of, yes, light like level of annoyance, but it's not even annoyance enough to get angry. It just is like
Uh-huh.
that, like teenager. Sometimes teenagers are like that, like
Teenager often they're like.
yeah.
But I see some adults come to me and they're like, "Oh, everything is good. Like with this, everything is good. I just don't know what I want."
Yeah. That's usually combined
This.
with I don't know what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Just disconnect from your needs, my wants. So which means I live by program which is given to me like parents, school, whatever, right? And I'm not
Yeah.
really motivated to live somebody else's life, right? So that's the actual essence. That's the sin. Not knowing yourself, not acting from this place like I want it, right? People
Disconnected from your purpose, basically, life
for your
task,
purpose
etc.
and also for your needs, because sometimes we take purpose, it's like, it's something highly elevated, it's important, but we also have basic needs. Like hunter who goes on a hunt, they don't act so much from the purpose, they act from need. Like we need to eat, right? In our society here, when everything is like pretty much ready and you go to the store, we don't value the drive which comes with like I'm hungry, right? With all those basic needs.
I think it's good. I think we need to learn how to get drive on different level. I think it's a new level of development for humanity, no?
It might be if everything goes well and you people developing new level of motivation, brilliant. Imagine like, but in most cases, what I see, people are not developing new level of motivation, and they just get disenchanted and depressed, and they don't know why they live their lives, and they have no purpose. And it's not even like you don't have to exclude one in order to get another. You can actually have both. You could have like very deeply rooted physical survival level motivation, and you have a higher purpose.
Mm.
Right? It's not either or. It's this and that. Right? Like, it's not a bad thing to needing to survive. It's actually, I often, not often, but sometimes I have people, especially women, and like in their youth, they did things that they regret. Right? I had few women who were sex workers, and for them, it's the same shameful thing. And what does the trick to actually break this shameful cycle when they cannot even access the actual energy and start doing something with that? I'm telling them this, like, okay, so you had to survive. You survived. Good job. Because the main responsibility of human being is to survive. Second thing that we do, we kind of rise above. We expand our consciousness. But if my body is going to die out of starvation, right? Forget about consciousness. Consciousnesses will disappear as well. So this responsibility to survive physically and to thrive physically, to be healthy, right? It's important, right? Definitely. So forget about the shame. If that's what you had to do to survive, okay, good for you. And now you have consequences. Like, you made your choices. Right? It was the right choice in the moment. It was not a pleasant choice, but it was the right choice to survive. And now you have consequences, energetic consequences of being a sex worker in your young years. So now let's work on that. Right? Yeah. You have basic. Doesn't mean that you did something bad, and that's why, like, the whole sinful story, you did this sin of being sex worker, and now that's why you're suffering. It's not quite that simple, right? It's just like our decisions, they made some consequences, and some of them we don't like, or we have to, take care of them. Yeah. So ucha, sin. And in ceremony, we often might hear that we are chanting, we meaning like Shipibo chant. Shinan ucha. Shinan, it's thoughts, mental. So basically bad thoughts, or adopting concepts which are not quite natural, like people thinking something like propaganda, for example, or like black market, right? They have name for that? I wouldn't say they developed name for that, but what we called propaganda and black marketing, it totally falls into this Shinan Ucha, and that's how you put it, and actually it works in ceremonies. And then you have Hui Ucha. Hui, it's a word. It's everything related to speaking language. Hui. So Hui Ucha, it's gossiping, for example, saying bad things about other people, right? And gossiping is very popular in every village in the world, I believe. That's part of living in a village. So being in Shipibo village, you will always have a lot of practice in cleansing gossiping because people gossip. And then you have Yora Ucha. Yora, it's a body, physical. So it's just like people cheating on, like family members cheating on each other, or people overeating, or people like doing like all this like misaligned thing with their bodies. That's Yora Ucha, right? And it's very important to name those things without shame and actually bring them into alignment, right? Because if somebody stays, not you, but if somebody stays long enough in misaligned state, then that's when you start seeing this buma, this disenchantment happening, because energetically you're not balanced, meaning you have a lot of stuff kind of disorganized in your system, and that's a major loss of energy. So the energy is not circulating right, it's not moving properly, and then you start feeling weak, and then you start feeling in your mind, people get affected in their mind, they start thinking like nihilistic thoughts, I don't know what this life is about, right? And it could be like literally split-second difference, right? Split-second difference. One moment, like I'm together, I'm good, and then something, hop, especially in ceremony, like somebody brings whatever energy, and if I pick this up, like, whoa. Ceremony is fast. Yeah, what's going on? And then it's like this process of reflecting, right? Basically awareness of like, okay, something happened, right? That's how I feel. Okay, that's what I need to do. And then you start chanting, like we practitioners, we start chanting to ourselves to get ourselves in the right state, right? And then we start kind of giving away this Wi-Fi, populating this energy in a room, working on a specific person. Yeah.
Interesting. And you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking while our civilization was working on outer thing like creating computer, this civilization was learning a lot of details about human psyche and creating methods to work. So it's just different development of culture.
I believe the old cultures, they're very much like that. They had to have an awareness of what's happening with them, right? If you look at mythology, there is always like it's psychological processes all often wrapped up in these fairy tales or stuff like that. So it's not really Baba Yaga somewhere there or Kashai Besmertny somewhere there, right? It's internal psychological processes that it's easier to work with them when it's something external, right?
Yeah.
So another thing that I wanted to mention today, what they call matzi. Matzi, it's cold.
Matzi is what?
Cold.
Ah, cold.
And another opposite of matzi, it's shana, it's heat.
Right?
So if you look
like
at the
elements,
yeah, it's like work with pure energies. So if you look like on psychological level, if we look at somebody who's getting like being emotionally cold, and then having this pressure cooker effect when things just explode, right? So these two extremes. On a physical level, Matzi called it's manifesting as arthritis, for example. Emotional, we already spoke about heat. It could be manifesting as temperature, of course, like temperature,
inflammations.
Inflammations, exactly. Emotional charge, like an ability to stay calm and to manage emotions. People need those outbursts just to like give out this access of energy, right? And that's another thing that in ceremony we work directly with. Closed heart, like the big theme in Western psychology those days, especially in this new age psychology. It's like your heart is closed, your heart is cold, right? Basically,
also love yourself.
Love yourself, yes.
It's like
I usually start with respect yourself because love is like when if you can.
I would start be curious about this.
Be curious about exactly. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So when this area of our body, which we call heart, right? This like heart chakra. When it's locked, the energy moving from root chakra up. So in each chakra, there is certain transformation, right? Happening. So here, once it went through the willpower center, right? Solar plexus, it's coming to the heart, and that's where like below the heart, everything which is happening with energy below the heart, it's actually related to me, right? My power, my pleasure, my will. And then something happens here in the heart area, and then it becomes relevant to community. I can speak up, right? I have a vision, and it's not about myself. So here something happens. It's far more than romantic. It's far more than, like this, like love. It's something that makes us social beings, and like effective social beings, right? So when this thing is closed, like people remain like forever egoists, forever closed down, like in a bad sense. They're good, like flavor of egoism, when you just like care about your needs, and me is that's my first responsibility to keep this reality sane. If I keep myself sane, I'm already doing a good job, right? But in a sense, like what I'm trying to be, like how I'm trying to be in the world, what I'm trying to how project. I step into the world, right? right? Is it me, 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 me? Give me my island. Give me enough money so I can build my island, and I can I can hide there, and like, and then it's like you can die. I don't care, right? So this area, when it's cold, when there's a coldness in a heart area, we really become like at the best teenagers who care about themselves, their insecurities, their traumas, their ambitions, their greatness, their misery. It's quite annoying, frankly. It's quite annoying to be in that state and to be present with someone who's constantly just like me, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you might see something completely opposite, another extreme, when people cannot connect to themselves at all, and
Yes.
then they need to
Only
save the
see
world.
others. Uh-huh.
Yes, then they basically like I'm saving the world, or like basically I'm doing something, like I'm doing anything to dissociate from myself, right? Yeah. So that's another thing, when there is something I so hate about myself, I so like I cannot like even look at it, so I have to dissociate from myself
Or
from
I don't find interesting. I don't find myself interesting.
yeah,
That's another one.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm not a good company for myself, so I need constantly to be connected to someone else, right? I need to keep myself busy with agendas of like some grandiose scheme, like, let's change the world. Like, which part of your inner world needs to be changed? What's
Yes.
wrong? What's wrong with your inner world, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I wanna like they have like other emotion because we already talked for 40 minutes. I think it's
Oh,
a moment, it's a good moment to stop, breathe. I don't know if people still here or sleeping, and maybe ask questions. Guys, questions, suggestions. Oh, we have Oksana. If I understand correctly, the practitioner chance to invoke some particular energy. So, no, I don't see. Let me see the chat.
so that the client can go through it. Or I
Uh-huh,
see
you
the
see it, right?
practitioner
Uh-huh.
see some energy, name it, how practitioner will see the particular client. Okay. Okay. So it's not a 5-minute conversation. It's really long conversation. It's basically asking me to, it's like teach me programming in like in 2 minutes.
Give an example, maybe.
So first of all, uh, there is intention. People come to ceremony and we talk, and since this tradition, it's very much like a village tradition. People know each other. It's really just a gringo thing. When often people come to ceremony, it's the first time they see each other, they see practitioner, and they leave. Right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
done this way. Like people in traditional setting, it's a village. I know your mother. This kind of dynamic. So
Mm-hmm.
there is some background knowledge about each other. It's a community thing. So people do ceremonies traditionally in communities, right? When somebody in community going through the tough period, either it's physical sickness or it's energetic, emotional sickness or mental sickness, right? The whole community is affected. Exactly, because it's all intertwined, because we have social obligations, we have social contracts that we care about each other to some extent, right? So that's why dynamic in communities, like we have to keep the community sane, we have to keep members of the community sane. That's why in community you see people who are dedicated to this line of work, because we need professionals who can actually take care of it, right? And in every community there is a common understanding, kind of common denominator, what is okay and what is not okay, right? It might vary from culture to culture, right? But usually people living in one village or in one community in United States, like belong to some community, we do share some like values, understanding of what is okay and what is not okay. Let's say in some communities, going to ayahuasca ceremonies and screaming on top of your lungs and basically running around and doing this like crazy things that usually people do when they get drunk, and then you have an excuse like, oh, but I was drunk, and you have this like extreme emotional, physical, whatever release. In some communities, that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some communities, it's a big no. You're absolutely not. Like people in altered state, what are you thinking? It's not okay to scream and basically frighten all of them. In some communities, it depends on the context, right? So we do have different ideas of what is okay, what is not okay, depending on our values and like what's happening in this community. Like when I run female circles, it's absolutely okay to take your top off, right? I had women getting like laying naked, right? If I
Mm-hmm.
had mixed gender group, I would never allow this to happen. It's not okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? In boys groups, it often happens that they need to get to the level of this roar, right? This like masculine,
Yeah.
like air is opening up, right? And if it's a male or predominantly male and everybody knows each other and people like feel safe with each other, yes, we can do it. Or if it's a private ceremony. But if I have a group of people who've been traumatized, like girls been traumatized, boys been traumatized by like this masculine male, absolutely no way this is going to happen. Like it's not okay. It's not okay because you might have your release, but like on a community level, somebody's getting traumatized right now. It's not okay, right? Also, like what level of those bad energies or dark energies or heavy energies is acceptable, it also depends on this social agreement. In some villages, it's absolutely okay to gossip nonstop and people just soaking in gossips. And like gossips do some like really important role of like, it's like a purge, right?
Oh, I
In
told you last talk, Mendel called gossip is a community, dreaming of community, the community like night dream, like human
yeah,
night dream when you digest everything, like community digest the situation through gossip.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, depending on those agreements and like what we understand is good, not good, depending on what people ask, right? There are certain things that's like, okay, I have this like depression, chronic depression, what you can do, how you can help me with chronic depression, right? So my chant would be something related to that, right?
So you have special chance for special situation. Ah.
I will. It's not that I have special chance. Basically, it's a freestyling. In Shipibo tradition, it's a freestyling. It's like in programming, you have
Uh-huh.
libraries, right? So you can call
Yeah.
to the library and take specific function. But basically, you're writing new program, you're doing something new. So when we run ceremonies, it's a big part of work is freestyling, depending on what's happening in a space, in a room, or
Uh-huh.
what's happening with specific person. Let's say if somebody came with depression, I will trace the roots of this depression, right? And I will
Uh-huh.
start pulling the roots of those depressions out of system, right? And yada yada, and just like working on the ear, on aire, niwe of a person, because usually with depression, this air gets kind of, element of air, it gets stiff. Usually, element of water, it's kind of either swampy or too dry, right? So that's what you do
Uh-huh.
in case of depression. And sometimes it might be not enough just to chant. In most cases, it's not enough to chant, but it's like, okay, you need to take this plant or you need to do this thing to elevate lifestyle
Basically,
reasons for,
balance.
yeah.
How interesting. I'm mesmerized with all this complicated world. Uh, in ayahuasca ceremonies, I have participated in the shaman would use speakers to manage my individual process, to both send and bring me back from my experience. How does a shaman manage the experience of many people participating in the ceremony? Interesting question.
Again, there is a common denominator for the room, right? The range of energies we are working with, right? It's possible to take
Mhm.
really deep into like this, like dark holes and alleys, and it might be not a good idea for beginners, for people who have no experience, who haven't done shadow work, right? And they're just going to be scared, right?
Yeah.
It's very common in especially white clothes ceremonies, with like musical ceremonies, to elevate, just like elevate people up, elevate
Mhm.
people.
Just bring it to pleasant.
Yeah, yeah. Again, for people who are constantly in a gloomy mood, it might be actually a good experience to have just this glimpse of like, actually, you could be happy. It's okay to
Not
be
for
happy.
a long time.
You know, sometimes even having this experience not for a long time, it almost like opens the door for you. It's like, oh, I can be happy. I have a choice, basically. I could
Mm-hmm.
be gloomy, that's fine. And I could be happy. And I could be something in between, right? And also we see, as you know, many people getting addicted to these like tools of like, oh, it's like my sugar now, my sugar candy.
Yeah, I just go there and get elevated.
Yes.
And then I meet some negative situation in life, and I don't know how to deal with it at all. That's what I see a
Yeah.
lot in New Age circles.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I don't know. Another question we have: how do you ensure that everyone gets enough attention from you as the one leading the ceremony?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. People are very concerned about getting enough attention. It's like this kindergarten thing, like how many how many teachers you have.
No, I'm asking from experience. It's not a kindergarten thing. I have seen people,
Yeah.
for better or for worse, maybe they need that attention, but regardless of whether or not they need it, the reality is that we're all there on the same premise, that we're all there to feel, right? And if somebody is monopolizing the group, then what do you do?
Well, if somebody is monopolizing the room, right? There could be two things. Like sometimes somebody needs particular attention. I had people who would come to me and just crash on my lap, you know, and they need like good 10, 15 minutes of my attention. And that's okay. If somebody in the room having problem with that, that's a really good question to yourself, why you're so easily triggered by somebody getting attention. Like where in your life you're not allowing it
Um,
to get your attention.
I haven't been triggered by it until it happened more than a few times
Yeah,
in similar circumstances. I
yeah.
know the answer. I feel
So
overlooked, and I don't want to feel overlooked when I came to a healing center.
Oh,
yeah,
somebody.
Can you hear what I'm saying?
like my understanding is that either you're talking about some mismanaged ceremonial space when basically somebody having private party within ceremony, which is not okay. Of course, it's not okay, right? So that's one case. And the way to distribute distribute attention is like, yeah, you're going one by one, or you call people, and some people need more attention. With some people I would chant like privately one-to-one. Some people they just part of the space, and I'm working with, most of the time it's work with the space, right? It's almost like I'm sitting there, I'm chanting, and whatever I'm chanting with, like whatever, like if people have relevant energy, they start purging when I'm doing cleansing circle, right? This cleansing chant. And whoever is not affected by whatever these things, so they just like going in their processes. Some people are, they just absolutely don't want to be disturbed from their processes, and some people they need more attention, like let's say somebody in the childhood with abandonment issue, and in one situation it's better to like it's often necessarily to go through this abandonment in ceremony, right? And like accept it, grieve it, and accept it. So me going and giving too much attention to this person is going to be undermining the whole process, right? And sometimes like somebody's having genuinely bad experience, right? Holding hand or just like personally chanting, that's the way to do. So that's me sitting in the middle of the room and managing this orchestra. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Frankly,
whole.
I never had complaints that I'm not giving enough attention, but I'm not into babysitter mode. That's definitely not for children. And the whole idea that you come and you're going to be babysit and they, like that's probably for me like a sign that like go to psychologist or to therapist and work about the whole block of like how you get attention. Do you have enough attention in your life? Do you give yourself enough attention? Where you feel disempowered in getting attention that you need, right? What do you feel when you are not having attention? Because some people literally they psychologically die if nobody's reflecting me, myself, that I don't exist. So some preparation work might be a good idea just to understand your own terrain, right? You don't have to change, but just like I know about myself, like as soon as somebody's like specific kind of energies in ceremony, I'm getting like, right? So the moment I sense this energy, like, okay, that's what I do, right? That's how I take care of myself when this specific type of energy is present. That's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a question of like, oh, but this energy doesn't have to exist in the world and I have to eliminate it, right? It's like, yeah, people do things. That's okay. That's normal. How I adapt to reality in which this thing exists. Either it's like somebody not giving enough attention or somebody's doing like this thing. But as a baseline, if somebody's becoming noisy, like talking in ceremony, running around, like, or very talkative, that's the ways how people usually kind of monopolize attention. For that, we have guardians, and guardians like come take people to another room because you're not suitable to be in a public ceremony, basically. If you cannot, like, if these things happens, yeah.
Another question, what's the optimal number of participants in the ceremony? Is the balance of beginners to experience important?
I would rephrase it in a way that depending on who shows up, basically it's not just the brew, ayahuasca, and the practitioner who define the quality of the ceremonial space. People who come, like there is no two ceremonies which are like, there are no two same ceremonies. Each ceremony is slightly different. That's what makes it so exciting. Like, let's say if I have people who've done dietas, that's a training path in this tradition, plant dietas. And people with dietas, they're present in the room. They're not losing themselves in mediation. They're not confused. They know what they're doing, and they came here for shamanic journey. It's a very different ceremony. It's much more productive ceremony and deeper ceremony than, let's say, ceremony of having bunch of people who never done any single day of meditation or practice or any practice, right? And just like they're just confused and super how do you call it, compulsive, stimulus reaction,
Mm-hmm.
right? So having full room of people in a reactive state, as opposed to having full room of people, of practitioners on different level, of course, it's going to be two different ceremonies. And life doesn't have to be ideal. And number of people, it depends. In this tradition, working with more than 15 people, it's not ideal. Like usually it's like 10, 12, 15. Right, and depending on number of people, you have number of guardians. The good practice is to have like one guardian for like 5 people, but again, depending on specific group of people. And some groups, especially experienced people, you don't have guardian at all. You don't need guardians at all. And people who are newbies and don't know what they do, how to do, and they need help going to the toilet, maybe, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Guardians.
You need some helpers.
Of course.
Okay, before, I don't know if you have more questions, you still have 5 minutes. I want to just do some announcements. First, if people who hear, Natasha is coming on June 8th, and May 15 is early bird day. So please, if you're interested, write me, and we form in the group right now, right? And I'm looking forward. I think I have what to learn from you and from this amazing Shipiba culture.
Yeah.
Another announcement, we have Terry Dune Chigun retreat in May 24. We still have spaces. And another exciting announcement that I think at the end of the month, I will lead here in Hudson Valley in Highland, New Paltz, basically. I will open, I would say, psychedelic ceremony integration laboratory. I will probably start not with integration, because we prepare into the circle. I'll start with setting intention in preparation, the ceremony process work style. So creating some exercise for yourself to find what you want from ceremony, It's an interesting one, and it will be announced. And welcome to join. I think that's it. I think I told everyone. Any more questions? We are almost an hour, so anything left on your side? I didn't talk to my ideas about strong emotions next time.
If nobody has a question, I have a kind of personal question.
Yeah.
What would you advise to someone who has me, someone who is me, not asking for a friend? I have how do I describe it? I have an completely unreal, like, I don't know why I have a fear of the ceremony. At the same time, I'm drawn to it, so it's kind of like a pull and not even a push. It's like I want to hide from it, but at the same time I feel cold to it, and so I'm always curious, but haven't gotten to a point to go through it. I've done different other ceremonies, but not ayahuasca.
I can tell you, Lisa, before.
Wait a second. What is the question?
What do you recommend? Like, how do I deal with this fear that I have?
May I add something before Natasha step in? I would say, usually I tell only stupid people don't have fear for ayahuasca.
Okay.
If you're afraid of it, that's right. She is scary. Natasha.
You should be, right?
Yeah, so Dina, it's like 2 minutes left. Is it okay if I go rogue? Meaning I'm going to take a few more minutes after that? Like, yes, pirates. So, Lisa, you said you have a fear, right? And you said you like, what do I need to deal with this fear?
Yeah, how do I don't even know how to deal with it. Like, what's the right way to kind
of... Why do you need to deal with that?
Because I always feel very curious. Always. So I have the desire, but at the same time I have...
What if you stay with the fear? Right now. Stay with the fear.
It's very, very constricting.
Yeah, where in your body do you feel it?
On the top of my belly. Not in the солнечное сплетение, but underneath.
Yeah.
Under solar plexus.
So
under the solar plexus.
Yeah, what if you don't do anything to that? But you just become curious about it, let it space to be, and see what kind of relationship you have with this fear, and what this fear, if you allow it to be, what is going to tell you?
Yeah, I probably need more time to process that.
Yeah.
It's very unpleasant.
I know. That's why I try to get rid of it.
It's like a... Yeah, it's like a... Actually, if I feel into it, it gets bigger. But when I don't feel into it, it's like a stone.
Yeah.
Lisa, come to our ceremony preparation circle. I will announce it this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I should do it Friday so people can stay here and then hike. I can relate a lot of what the speaker was talking about with religion. How your religion, I didn't understand. Tatiana. How you relate? You understand the question, Natasha? No.
No, I would appreciate, Tanya, if you can elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, maybe you describe more, because how you connect religion and... Tanya.
She's on mute. She's asking to unmute her.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
You can unmute yourself.
Okay. So basically, what the speaker, Natalia was talking about is very, very relevant to me. I'm in therapy for 2 years, and the concepts that you described, like changing your attitude to what's going on, to the triggers, basically, like you've been talking about the young girls. But, you know, I've been trying to change my attitude to some of the things, most of the things. And for me, it's like a process. And when you spoke about gossiping and saying, basically, I'm also a practitioner of Christian Orthodox tradition. And what I wanted to ask, like, for me, it's like a process, but I can never get to the point where I'm happy with the results that the process is giving. So about the ceremony, let's say a person comes in, you do the ceremony, you clear something. I've never been to a ceremony, but can it come back? Let's say maybe it's just, is it like a pill to fix a specific issue, or you just transform a person? No, I'm asking because I don't know.
It's a good question, actually.
Because I've
It's
been
not a bad
cleansing,
question,
yes,
Natasha.
because I've been working and working on myself and cleansing some things. And like you said, I've discovered specific traumas and so on and so forth. But basically, in terms of the result that I'm giving out to the world, I'm not quite happy.
Look, the whole story of changing yourself, transformation, becoming a
Yes.
better person, right? The trick part is that it's not really about becoming another person. It's actually accepting of what is. Part of you which screams inside of you that you have to be better, you have to be this, you have to be that, right? It's not the part to listen to, right? You listen to this part only to know, to register. It's like, oh, I'm not okay with, like, name the thing. Just name the thing which, like, you absolutely cannot live with that. Like, I'm a gossiper, for example, right? Like, what about being a gossiper, having this need to communicate to people, having this twisted need to communicate to people, having this passive aggressive way of actually telling the world is like, no, I'm a good one, she's a bad one, right? It's kind of cute. When you look at this way, it's cute, right?
Well, depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. But when you look at that in a way, it's like absolutely sinful thing, you're going to burn in hell if you're doing this thing, then it becomes a huge problem.
Then it becomes a right. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
So then first you taking this intensity of judgment out of it, right? And look, like, what emotions you're trying to avoid when you're judging yourself being this way. If I'm judging myself being a gossiper, I'm trying not to feel that I'm lonely.
I think this concept, I think, you know, the main thing for me, like the previous girl mentioned, it's a fear, because you can easily get lost in all of these concepts and layers, and oh, I'm accepting a gossiper myself in myself, so I'm gonna continue to gossip. So it's kind of like a very, very, very unknown terrain, and it's easy to get lost there. So, and we don't want to do that, you know, to ourselves. That's what I'm thinking about.
So what does it tell us? That the whole learning process, because learning, it's always meeting unknown with unknown.
Because we're still trying to be good, you know, we're still trying to be good.
Yeah. So do you have intuitive feeling for yourself? What is good, what is not good? Do you have this inner moral?
I have.
So what do you do when you feel something that's like, I know it's not good, but I still want to do it. Or like, I still want to eat this candy, right? Or I still want to say this stingy thing to this person.
Yes, I understand.
Right? So that's the thing. That's the source, and that's a symptom of inner conflict.
Yes.
Psychologically speaking, I want to be a good person. I genuinely want to be a good person, and I want to tell this bitch that she's blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
Who's familiar with the feeling? Like, show your hand.
I mean, that's the thing that they teach us.
Yeah.
Like, you see yourself, like you see a specific image of yourself or what you want to be, but at the end of the day, you're like totally different person.
So next step you look at this part of yourself which is revengeful, which is not kind at all.
Yes.
Right? And you start meeting with her, right? And that part of you has needs. right?
Yes.
Like, for example, if somebody sits so deep into this, like, I'm here to help people, I'm a helper of people. Basically, I have no right to have my own needs. I have no right to have my own ambitions, right? And this girl, she's just beautiful and she's very attractive and she gets all the attention, but I have to be a right one. I have to be like Mother Teresa, right? Of course, you're not happy because you're a young woman who wants attention, get married, I don't know, have kids, like make a lot of money and like have a normal, good life, like for example, right?
Okay.
Or maybe be a star
Exactly, be a
and not
star.
be have a normal goodness. Also
Yeah.
good.
So basically, there are some needs which are you're not allowing yourself to have, and this bitchy part, this gossiping part, it's the only part which actually tells you that you have another needs. So basically, she's the symptoms to you about your inner conflict. So my invitation is not to become a gossiper.
Okay.
It doesn't it doesn't stop at that point. It's like reality check. There is something going on in the system, and I'm not just a good girl, right? I have Baba Yaga inside of me, and this Baba Yaga is sometimes doing those things that, like, then I have to go and confess, right? Let's meet Baba Yaga and let's listen to her what she's telling me, right?
And what kind of talents and needs. You know, I want to add something. I promised to add something from process work. I think we are far beyond, but I would say those parts which we see as not good or not acceptable or we judge. And yes, they have needs, but they also have talents.
Mhm.
Baba Yaga has magic. This gossiper, she maybe she wants to be part of attention of the village.
Yeah.
So there are always, or want to connect or whatever, there are always some kind of inner talent in these parts which are not we call it secondary process and process work. And that's how I work with those extreme emotions, unpleasant emotions. We always dig some gold in this swamp.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, it was always fascinating to meet with you, Natasha, and to be continued. And please, if you're interested, write to me because we form in a group. And next, people say thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Yeah,
to all for coming and listen, being interested.
and we'll continue. I like our conversation, so let's see what will happen further. Thanks. Thank you guys for coming and being with us.
Love you. Bye.
People show up, say hi.